guys, it's Jeremy, and what I'm going to be showing you today is how you can actually set up 7.1 audio using two 5.1 sets. And both these sets you can get pretty inexpensive. They're about $75 each. So I'm going to go a little more in depth on how you can make your computer think that you actually have a 7.1 setup. So please check it out. So the first thing you want to do is make sure that your computer can support 7.1 audio from your sound card. Now on your computer you can actually check into the settings to see if a 7.1 option is available. On the back of the computer you will have each plugin for the 7.1, which I have labeled here for you so you have an idea of what you're looking for. Next we'll talk about some things you'll need. First you will need two of the Logitech 5.1 surround sets, and they're $75 each. Then you're going to want to have a yAdapter from a male stereo to a dual female stereo. The next thing you'll need is some couplers if you want to make the speakers longer depending on the size of the room you use. Now the last thing you need is some extra audio cables if you are going to make the speakers longer. Okay, so now I'm going to show you guys how you actually would set up this 7.1 using the two 5.1 setup. I originally had the 5.1 and I just wanted to have something, a little more for the few games that actually utilize it. So I thought maybe it'd be pretty neat to try it out. But basically, what you're going to do is plug all of your speakers into the back of the sub. And it actually is labeled on the back of the sub so you know where to plug them all in. And then your front right speaker, which I have mounted on the wall here, actually has a cable on it that plugs into the back of the computer. So that's how you're going to plug all of these speakers into the back of the computer. Now I went ahead and outlined for you in one of the previous pictures where they all plug into, the center, left, rear, and that's how you would plug them into the computer. So first you have to set up the 5.1. So you plug in one of the Logitech sets to get the 5.1 audio. Then once you have that set up, you can move on to actually adding into the 7.1 with dual subs. Okay, so with the 5.1 complete, now we're going to add in the second sub. So you have to have these both plugged in for power. Now I had my second sub behind this chair I have here. That way it'd just kind of be out of the way and it would actually add some extra sound. I think it's best to have one of the subs in the front of the room and the other sub in the back of the room. Now on the back of this sub, you're not going to actually use all of the ports because we only need two more speakers to get 7.1. So what I've done is plug the ones I'm not using. I just used an audio cable and cut off the end. I do that to prevent rattling because the bass subwoofer actually will start to rattle these loose connections here if nothing's plugged into it, and it just doesn't sound very good. So then what you're going to do is I used the rear right and the rear left, and then I just took and plugged in two of the speakers. So obviously you don't want to use our center speaker, you want to use the rear left and the rear right speaker, just like I have here, and then you plug them into the appropriate places on the back of the sub. Now if you have a room like mine to where you need the speaker length to be longer for the wires, then you're going to have to use a coupler, which I did post at the beginning of the video. The coupler will just allow you to take an audio cable and plug it into the end of the speaker cable, which is here, and then you can actually make it longer. So you're just extending the size of the cable. That way you can actually place them wherever you like, because I have my side speakers mounted on the wall here and there just wasn't room in the actual cable to get them to go all the way. Okay, so now that you have the second sub set up, you got to plug it into the back of the computer. Now this is where things can get a little tricky because you're going to want the subwoofer for the second sub to actually play along with the side speakers, because if you just plug in the side speakers using the rear cord into the back where it is says side speaker, you're only going to get audio out of the side speakers and no bass with that. So what you have to do first is, we previously plugged in the 5.1 to the bass center channel on the back of the computer, and you need to unplug the center bass channel, and then you're going to have to use the yAdapter to split that, because you're going to want bass going to both of these subs. So you split it with the yAdapter, and then I just use the headphone extension cable, so that way I could have the first 5.1 plugged in, and then a headphone extension cable plugged in the other side of the yAdapter, and that cable is going to extend to the second sub center channel. So now you can have the second sub center channel, and then using the rear speakers, you're going to plug those into the side channel on the computer. So if you have all of them plugged in, then you can get 7.1. Now, the way that these plug into the back of the computer is it's just like a little three-pronged tail. So if you don't have room to make these long enough to the computer, because like I said, my front right speaker is mounted on the wall right next to the computer, but if any of these are not long enough to plug into the computer, you can simply just use, as I said a minute ago, headphone extension cables to actually make them longer. So again, just to refresh, you're going to have your 5.1 plugged in. So from your first sub, you will have the front left and right and the rear left and right plugged directly into the computer. Then you're going to split the center sub with the yAdapter, and then plug both subs into that yAdapter. Then on the side speaker out of the computer, that's where you're going to plug in the extra rear left and right that we set up with the second sub. So that way, if you have all of these together, you will get 7.1 audio, which I'm going to show you how to make sure it's turned on in the computer settings right now. Now, I did want to show you guys, before I show you the computer settings, where I put the second front right speaker, because you will still have to use that, because that's how the speakers actually plug into the computer. So I have this little table here, and I have the second one actually just hiding out in here. So that allows it to be out of sight, and you will just have to have it powered on to make sure that you can get audio to those extra speakers, because they're going to need power, and that's how the side speakers will be able to still work. Okay, now that we have both of our 5.1 subs all set up, we can actually now let the computer know that there's a 7.1 setup plugged in. Because the computer doesn't know any different that there's not a 7.1 plugged into it. It's going to send the side channels out to the extra rears we set up, and then the normal 5.1 out to the normal 5.1 that we set up. So you have to make sure it's activated in your computer though. So you're going to want to go to your sound settings. Now you're going to have this somewhere in your taskbar. So I'm going to click on my audio settings here now for you. And it's going to pull up some audio options for me. So if I go to my speaker options, which every computer is going to have this a little bit different, then you're going to have some kind of speaker setup. And this is where you can adjust your speaker from 5.1 to 7.1 or just a regular stereo. But as you can see here, the 5.1 option is, or 7.1 option is now available because all the channels are full on the back of the sound card. So you can select that option, and then you can actually just perform an audio test using Windows to make sure that all of these are working properly. So when you perform this audio test, you'll actually be able to set up where you want the speakers to be to get the best sound. So that's what I've already done here in my gaming setup that I have. And I do recommend having some kind of way to hide your wires. I think it just looks a lot better. I just simply use these cable covers here that you can actually pick up from pretty much anywhere. But these cable covers, you can hide all of your wires in them, and it just looks much cleaner on your walls and along the base. Now some people hide the wires underneath their carpet, or they like to go through the walls. It's completely up to you, just whatever you feel would work best. But that's all you really have to do. Once you have them set up, you should hear the audio coming out of every single one of your speakers. Tested it out now, and actually it's just working really good. Alright guys, so that's it. That's all you got to do to actually set up your 7.1 audio. If you have any questions or there's things you're concerned with or confused, please post in the comments below and I will actually address those But I've used it for quite a while. There's quite a few games now that are actually using 7.1. And if you'd prefer just the regular 5.1, it's really nice too. But it's really not too expensive considering how each set of the Logitech speakers are only $75 and they sound really good. You can get both of these pretty cheap. So I do recommend just going ahead and putting in the 7.1 because I'm sure it will become more available in the future. But if you have any questions, please comment below.